Well, baby, you've been on my mind. I think about you all the time. Oh, I want to see your face. That don't make me wait.
All right, welcome back to Sleeping Around, the podcast with Dr. Ann and Matthew. I'm getting used to saying that.
Yeah, and you know what's exciting is
What's that?
I don't think we've told our audience that we've completely changed the concept, and we now are actually sleeping around. Not
That's true.
necessarily with other people, right?
That's right. Well,
I mean, we're keeping it a committed relationship, right?
Right.
You're my co-host.
I thought you meant me personally.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
But we now are actually taking this
Yes.
to different cities. And
That's
so
right.
we are currently in Indianapolis.
We are.
And the reason we're in Indianapolis is because it's Sleep 2023.
Yep.
This is the biggest conference of the year, being
Absolutely.
able to talk about everything big in sleep.
Yes,
And we have someone here.
That's right.
He's very near and dear because he's an exceptional colleague. But
Absolutely.
you want to talk about big changes in sleep.
Yep.
This man right here, Dr. Ed Mezerhane, he has developed a new product that is a remote patient monitoring product that is
Okay.
going to help patients who have obstructive sleep apnea.
Well,
have
before
better
we jump
outcomes.
into it, I want to tell everybody, thank you for that, what you talked about the podcast, but we got to tell our audience to like and subscribe.
Oh, yeah.
If they don't like and subscribe and whatever buttons, Dan, what do they push for iTunes and Spotify? Swipe left, swipe right. How does that work? Just like Grindr?
I think
Everything's.
Is that how it works?
I don't know what any of these are. I'm married for way too long. These apps were not even around, I think, when I was
You're
single.
great.
So.
No, you're doing great. But I am excited. I got the sun coming down.
Yes.
And
When the sun
I got to
comes
meet
down.
Ed last year.
Isn't
We
that a
figured
song?
out, I met Ed last year
Yes, you did.
through some mutual friends and then had a really good time talking to him last night. And so
Yeah.
I'm just honored you're here.
Yeah.
So thank
Here
you,
to talk to
Dr.
us
Ed.
about MonitAir.
Yeah, let's jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you so much. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Really great connecting and talking shop again with you guys and
Yeah.
conversing and
Yeah.
looking forward to it.
It's awesome. So first and foremost, you're a Miami sleep doc, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
so Miami is a completely different landscape from what I'm used to, right? I'm in central Pennsylvania. We don't see sun as much as you do. We also don't see the bikinis as much as you do.
Ooh,
so
sure.
tell us, what is it like being a sleep physician in Miami, Florida?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you again for having me here. And so I always say Miami is this particular microcosm, right? It's totally different than every other part of the country, right? And so we have obviously a melting pot of cultures, right? I see patients young and old all the way through, but Miami is just, to me, it's the best city in the world, right? And especially over the last 5 years, right? It's just grown precipitously.
Yes.
So we've always had the Latin influx and even like Eastern European influx, but now we're getting California,
Oh, yeah.
New York,
Sure.
Chicago, LA,
Sure.
realizing that little treasure, that little spot where, hey, I used to live here and I used to pay that for rent. And with that kind of money, I can get this in Miami. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So for somebody being in Miami, it sort of messed it up for us.
You're like, it's awesome, but
look, the
I love that
restaurant
he goes, Miami was our little secret. Really? I mean,
so was
Yeah.
Las Vegas.
Yeah. So the idea of Miami, I think 10 years ago was South Beach, right?
Sure.
So when
Yeah.
LeBron said, I'm taking my talents to South Beach,
Yes.
true.
right? That was the idea of Miami. Now, no matter what sort of little town suburb you go to, it's like a little downtown is sprouting there, and food and arts and music and bar
cultures
scene
there.
and cultures.
Yep.
It's just so diverse.
You know,
now.
Ed and I were talking before we started the shoot, and I shared with him my little spot in heaven is the Keys,
Sure,
right?
sure.
And so, there's just different levels, meaning this. The Keys are more laid back, island time, chill. But, man, I'm telling you, nightlife in Miami.
Sure.
And, I love to dance.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you right now, it is awesome. And there's good times. I have never not had a good time in Miami. I usually am passing through, but I will tell you that it's awesome. And this is pretty much a lifer outside of a little time in Baltimore. Am I
Sure.
correct?
That is correct.
Talk
Yep.
a little bit about that, because he did all his schooling and everything at the U. Am I
That is
doing
correct.
right? You? Okay.
Throw it
There
up.
you go.
Yeah. So I've been in Miami most of my life. Originally from Venezuela. Came here to the States when I was 6 years old. Lived there, then Baltimore for part of middle school and high school, and then came back. Was in Fort Lauderdale. Then went to med school and undergraduate school and residency in internal medicine and sleep fellowship at the the University of Miami. And I finished in 2013, and I've been out of training for 10 years, right? And so this idea of having had trained there and then wanting to stay there is based on a sort of professional decision, but also a personal decision. Family's there, friends are there, and again, just really saw that treasure that to us is like the greatest city in the world, right? But professionally, when I started coming out of fellowship and really realizing what I wanted to do, I realized when I went into residency, I wanted to do internal medicine and work the sleep practice into my internal medicine and primary care practice.
Sure.
Fell into sleep, loved it so much, decided I wanted to do sleep 100%. Right?
Yeah. I want to pause you one second because there may be some of our audience who doesn't know internal medicine, right?
Yeah.
So internal medicine is you are the jack of all trades,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
You are the person who's like the primary care, you're the hospitalist, you're the one who's making sure you're well alive, checking everything else. So an internal medicine doctor going into sleep medicine is such a valuable asset
100%.
because the fact that you have this general landscape of going, cardiology is related, endocrinology, the heart, your hormones, your lungs, your this. And so therefore, someone like yourself, jack of all trades background, going to sleep medicine, you're going to have a very different purview as to how can I use sleep as a tool to maximize all of these things?
Correct. And I think for sleep particularly, it's nice having the internal medicine background because we can take care of the whole gamut of sleep disorders, right? So this stigma or this idea that you're a sleep apnea doctor or a sleep study doctor, I can't stress enough how long we've had to educate patients and continue to educate patients that, no, that's not what we do. We are taking care of your typically chronic sleep disorder, right? And I'm sort of your primary care for sleep and sleep only, right? So it's needed.
And the clarification is also more than sleep patients is also just society in general. The number of times that other clinicians think that, oh, you're a neurologist? Yeah. So you manage sleep apnea, isn't that a lung disease? And so the reality...
Don't pulmonologists usually do
exactly.
that?
And so you're so right that when we talk about sleep, people don't recognize that it's so much more than a sleep study, more than a CPAP machine, more than sleep apnea. There are 70 different sleep disorders that are recognized by the International Classification of Sleep Disorders, Edition 3, right? The new text revision is out now, right? The American Academy of Sleep Medicine just put out the new text revision, did some updates in a variety of different areas that further enhance and make it easier to diagnose patients. And you're completely correct. By having that diverse background, you're going to be much more of a ability to help people understand where this fits in their life.
Here's something about passion, though, and what I love so far, what I'm hearing, Ed. He goes, I went into internal medicine, I fell into sleep and fell in love. Like, I want someone working in sleep that is passionate about sleep.
Correct.
I know this woman.
Yes.
You're very passionate.
Yeah.
You are extremely
best
passionate.
Patient advocate, best advocate.
I'm telling you, she's passionate.
Amazing.
So to hear that, it's so cool to come to these events where all of us sleep geeks get together and we talk sleep. Of course, we don't sleep while we're here. That's a whole other story.
No. But it also sounds like no one in Miami sleeps.
I was getting ready to
probably
start
has a booming
We have a little
practice.
place called 11.
Yes.
You may or may have not heard of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Their whole thing is Team No Sleep.
Yep.
So we have a love hate.
Well,
with
and
that.
everybody
We have
gets-
a love hate with that hashtag, but it is what it is.
Well, and hear me out. This is how much of a jock I am. There's something called the Miami flu. It is real in NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL.
Yep.
They call it the Miami flu because teams will go there a day before they play or 2 days before, and they have fun, and they are not able to perform as good. So Miami has always had like the home field advantage.
Got it.
Where major league and professional teams will come in the night of the game. They have curfews. They play the game. Then they get to spend time in Miami. So it's a fun place. But let's get back to sleep.
Okay.
Let's get back to sleep. I love that we're talking about Miami. This passion, me and you were talking about just sleep labs in general.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that because this is neat. When you started in 2013 and opening up your first lab was when?
2016, right?
Okay.
So going back to it was kind of a professional decision. I saw that actually our population is so diverse and so huge, but sleep medicine and sleep providers were very scarce. And that is actually an issue today, right? 10 years later.
Across the country.
Right. Dare I say it's gotten more scarce, right, than when it was, 10 years ago. And that's really unfortunate because this diagnosis, this disease state, this comorbidity is not going away. We're only finding it more, right? And so I started out just seeing patients, right, was subleasing space, working out of wherever I can find space to work out, slowly built it. It took me about 3 years, opened up my first location and added the sleep lab to it. And then I noticed that just by doing the right thing, just by educating, correcting behaviors, modifying, taking care of that patient longitudinally, right? And this ties into a little about MonitAir, and we'll talk about that, is there had to be a continuum, right? And so it was disjointed, right? Somebody was seeing the patient, then they went out to a IDTF sleep lab, an independent diagnostic testing facility. They got the results. Nobody explained it to them. They got a machine dropped off at their house. Then I don't know what to do with this. Then they failed the machine. Then nobody said, well, you got to use it. So good luck. Like, well, I can't use it, doc. Well, I don't know. Right. And so where we fit in was we were able to actually take care of it. Because I always say the easy part is doing the sleep study. That's easy.
Yeah.
Order a sleep study or the machine. That's the easy part. Use your machine. Use your airway therapy. That's not so easy, right?
Yes.
And so that's where we come in as sleep specialists to educate our patients about the importance of treating the disease, but also how are we going to get you there? By all means necessary, right?
Yes.
All night, every night, by all means necessary. How do we do it? How do we get you to where you need to be? How do we treat that symptom? And how do we get you to improve and restore function?
Yeah.
You
Love
know, and that's the idea. And so I saw that the care model was disjointed. We needed to see the patients. We needed to be able to test them appropriately, triage them to results, get them to the appropriate therapy, and then follow them from there on. Because I really believe, right, and as we were talking, Matt, this whole advent of home sleep apnea testing, right, it's blown up. But I mean, that's just my personal opinion. In 10, 15 years, you're going to walk into my office diagnosed.
Yeah.
Right. And so the analogy I like to use is kind of like in Cologuard and GI. Oh my God, what's this going to do?
Right.
Is it going to kill the colonoscopy? No, it increased the colonoscopy.
It did.
Sure.
Because we screen so many patients. Right. We have this bottleneck at screening.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But then also, it doesn't stop there. Right. Manage the patient.
Agreed.
Deal with the data sets, and that's the idea. And so open up the first sleep lab in 2016. 2019 at a second location. So we have 8-bed sleep labs. Right. Total across both facilities. And then actually we're duly licensed as a DME company in the state of Florida.
Great
right?
move.
Because I can see you, I can diagnose you, and I can treat you.
Yeah.
That's
Right?
One-stop shop,
Yep.
make it easier. The one
Absolutely.
thing that we constantly like to remind people is that when you remove barriers to care, just like you were saying, remove those bottlenecks, remove things that it's adding an additional burden for the person who's experiencing the medical journey, you end up with better outcomes for all involved.
Absolutely.
Less frustration for the care provider, less frustration for the patient, but better outcomes, better days,
Yeah.
better nights.
Right.
And so that model is beautiful.
Yeah. And so it's an older, maybe model, more traditional model. But I think in our microcosm Miami, patients, especially because of the cultural kind of way of being and being taken care of traditionally,
Sure.
they love that. They love seeing their doctor, love being
Sure.
in. And obviously with COVID, with the advent of telehealth, we had to migrate into that. But now I'm actually back to an office-based kind of model with some telehealth here, sprinkled
Sure.
here and there, and obviously remote monitoring going forward. But it patients need access to their providers, right? And if you can't have access to good providers, then it just doesn't work, right? But at the same time, when we talk about our ENT colleagues and our pulmonary colleagues and neurology colleagues and cardiology colleagues that aren't doing primary sleep, they're also important, right? Because this is a neurovascular disease. This is a cardiovascular disease. So we need to look at it that way, right? Sleep is a systemic problem, right?
Yes, it is.
It affects all the way from your hair all the way to your toes, right?
Yes.
So how do we address that, and how do we work in the ecosystem? I think sleep is poised for that sort of next level.
I totally agree. I mean, when
Yeah.
you talk about our podcast, our whole intention is to say sleep intersects with lifestyle, culture, and with your wellness. And the reality is exactly what you just said. I can talk about how it affects my hair. Yeah, if I'm not getting good sleep, my hair is not going to look as good as it does.
Oh,
right?
wait, are we doing something here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I don't know
Me
how
and you were not
poor
sleeping
your,
right. Me and you were not sleeping
how
right,
poor
brother.
your sleep is. But you know what?
Oh, my beard's on point.
Yeah,
All
it's
right,
on
thank
point. So you
Thank
must have been doing something right. That's I don't know if it's the pillow or the mattress, or we'll have to start to talk to some other companies, understand what's going on there.
No, but I'm excited to hear about what you're working on.
Sure.
And I know because our audience, and let me be real quick on this. Cologuard, what a great device, and I mean, what a great product.
Yes.
And I'm not being funny. I hope everybody gets tested.
Yeah.
All you have to do is get mailed to you. Yes, you go to the bathroom, you put it in the box, you mail it back.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just so passionate about that we need to start checking that more. Same way with sleep. But
Yeah.
on to
and
you and what you
recognizing
do.
that is a screening for colon cancer. So
Absolutely.
that's the reason. So just in case people aren't
Oh, yeah.
familiar, it's
Sorry.
a
Yeah.
screening for colon cancer. And obviously, when you are able to diagnose colon cancer at a very early stage,
Yep.
it's a curable disease.
Yep,
right?
yep. And I
so
would still have
that's-
my favorite musician, Ronnie James Dio, alive today if he would have been checked out. So, but I want to get to your product, or I mean, what we're here to talk about,
Yep.
MonitAir. So,
Sure. Absolutely.
tell us what was when did that come in this time frame that you're talking about? When did that become a reality or a thought?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it dates back to 2019, right?
Okay.
So my co-founder and I, Dr. Rick DeArmas was actually at that point in time, he was in medical school and doing a dual degree in MBA at Harvard.
Okay.
And so he reached out to me and says, hey, look, I'm pinging people, mentors, trying to understand what are your pain points, right? And I need an idea that's scalable, that's reproducible. And
Should we reshoot that whole part? Because are you going to be able to?
No, he'll just go camera on him.
Okay.
Okay.
Just go camera on him.
All right.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
And so when Rick and I talked, I said, look, we have all these data sets, but we don't know what we don't know, right? Patient shows up to my office. I get into the manufacturer's cloud platform. I download the data. Great. I say, Bob, you're doing great. I'll see you in a year. Bob shows up in a year. I'm like, Bob, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
Like, no, doc, I went to Italy. I went to Miami. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. and then I got back and I needed my CPAP.
That's right.
Bob, come on, Bob. We've talked about this.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. You need your CPAP. This is why you need your CPAP. Well, I'm not really symptomatic. That's fine. Symptoms may wax and wane, right? May come and go. But at the end of the day, I'm not just treating, it's like, I'm not treating your snoring. I don't sleep with you.
Right.
I'm not trying to be cynical, but I don't care that you snore.
Right.
Snoring's not going to kill you. I'm treating the cardiovascular and neurovascular disease that this is, right? And so you got to be on your CPAP. So all these patients that were previously either compliant, right, and now not compliant, or patients come in, they got their airway therapy, let's say CPAP, 2 months ago, I'm seeing them 60-day follow-up, which is kind of a routine standard of care. The guy's put it on for 20 days. And he says, Doc, I can't use it. I'm like, no, Bob, it's not that you can't use it. You didn't use it, right? So now I got to correct behaviors. I'm 2 months behind the 8 ball, right? How do I correct that behavior? So I'm seeing all these patients non-compliant, getting lost to care, not showing back up, maybe showing back up. The DME's taking away their CPAP. Got to spend on another sleep study to get them back on something. The disease didn't go away. Why are we spending on another sleep study to get them qualified again for another device? And it's just like crazy, right? Yeah. That's one part of it. The other part of it was all the calls that we're getting about the DME didn't do this, the DME didn't instruct me on that, they left the box, she sent me a CD, I don't know how to use it, they didn't give me the right mask, it's not what you ordered, I don't know if the settings are correct, and my staff's dealing with all this, right? And then as all this is going on, I'm realizing that our cardiology colleagues are managing these AICDs, these pacemakers, this blood pressure remotely. And I start looking at the remote patient monitoring codes, right? And so prior to 2017, CMS had bundled that service, which is an evaluation and E&M management service, into our visits, right? So I would see you today, and I'd see you in 6 months. And any work that I did during that in-between period, right, that period where I didn't actually touch upon you, was actually supposed to get added on to the time of the visit. So if I was seeing you today and it was a level 3 visit, and it was a level 13 follow-up, and then I added 20 minutes of time in between, I could actually bill level 14, right? But nobody was really documenting that. Nobody was really doing it. And then because of the advent of all these wearables and these remote devices that monitor data physiologic, CMS actually said, wait a second, this data is separately identifiable, separately actionable, and actually there's probably a lot of value here, right? So 2017 CMS says, let's unbundle those codes. Let's pay them separately, right? And the cardiologists were already doing this. I said, why are we doing a sleep? We have better data sets. We have access to the data sets because our cardiologist colleagues, I pinged them and they said, they can't connect a Bluetooth device. They don't know how to use this wireless module at home. Wi-Fi. We got cellularly connected data. Guy takes off the machine within an hour. I know what's happened with that patient the night prior, right? So I'm like, we're sitting on all this data. We're doing nothing with it, right? And then I started looking at, so I sat down with Rick. We talked about it. He said, this is a great idea. He presents it for his Harvard Business School thesis.
Wow.
It turns out his teacher says, hey, this is actually a pitch deck competition. 65 teams. We placed top 10. We placed top 5. This goes into December 2019. We had initial interest from some investors. Set up some meetings in Boston for that. February 2020.
Where's
what happened?
Boston.
Yeah, Boston. So March, I'm supposed to fly up for these 2 meetings. You know what happens March 2020? The world ends, and we're all still here, thank God. And so and so everything just went right. But we had a lot of free time, right? We went from inpatient visits to telemedicine visits. Even with telemedicine visits, patients didn't want to be seen, so my workload went down significantly. And so Rick and I kind of decided to run with this, conceptualize it in 2020, and really realized that there wasn't a data set or a remote patient monitoring solution for the sleep doctor, right? Because while weight management is important to what we do and blood pressure and arrhythmia management is important in what to do, I'm mostly interested in the CPAP data. So what we set out to do is create a system, a platform where we can get the CPAP data sets, bring them into our platform, visualize that in one platform for the provider so they don't have to log into one cloud platform and another.
I love that.
All into one.
One-stop shop.
Yep. Efficiency is key.
Correct. Bring the data sets in, risk stratify the patients so I can show you when somebody is worsening their risk category or worsening their adherence, right? Show that to you. Allow you to time track all the activity that's spent on that patient for the purpose of remote patient monitoring, communicate in a HIPAA compliant fashion from the platform, outgoing text, video conference, phone call, incoming text message. So I tell my patients, if you're a MonitAir patient, this is the number for you. This is the number for your sleep coach. You're a dedicated person. Send a message. Messages comes in. You should, if it's, between now and the end of the day, by the end of the day, you should expect an answer. If you send a message overnight, next morning you'll get a response, right? We're going to triage the issue. And if we're seeing that you're not complying with therapy, I'm not going to wait 2 months to see you. My dedicated clinical staff is watching you. We're going to fix the problem proactively, not retroactively, not 2 months behind the
Playing offense, not defense.
Right, exactly. And so if I can't get you to put on the CPAP, you can't tell me what your problems are, right? If you can't tell me what your problems are, I can't fix them, right?
Yes.
So let's see that. Let's see that live. Let's see that on a weekly basis. So the idea is that the platform is there for you to be tracking your patients on at least a weekly basis, if not hopefully daily, where you can see I did this intervention. What did that do to the behavior, right? Not wait, okay, I'm going to send a mask. And 3 months later, you come and say, hey, the DME didn't send it to me.
Yeah.
Right?
I have to tell you, there's so much to unpack there.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
you come back to even just the first part of what you've described, which is the stigma around obstructive sleep apnea, in that there is no other medical condition where an insurance will take away your therapy
Yep.
Because you don't use it.
because you're not using it.
Right, correct.
Can you imagine being diabetic and you didn't take your metformin
Yep.
and they say, we're going to take it away. You'll end up in the hospital, right?
Yep.
Obstructive sleep apnea, same thing's going to happen. You're going to end up in the hospital, except it's going to be with something that's not reversible. It's going to be a myocardial infarction or a heart attack, a stroke. It's going to be atrial fibrillation.
Correct.
And so first and foremost, that is a major call to action that we have, right? Let's start destigmatizing sleep disorders.
Correct.
Let's start talking about them in a way that we're saying these are legitimate medical conditions that need attention.
Correct.
The second piece, the Center for Medicaid and Medicare, they really direct and dictate a lot of what we do in medicine, right?
Correct.
And so therefore contributing to major barriers, as we talked about already, barriers are a key to removing. And so the fact that at least they recognize by debundling. So when we're talking about bundle versus not bundling, if you're not in medicine, that means I either get the entire menu together or I can do a la carte,
A
right?
little prefix action.
And so you have now an a la carte option of saying, this is what the patient in front of me needs. And now it makes sense that a doctor would be able to get some reimbursement for that because someone needs to be paid in order for something to be available, right?
Correct.
Then you talk about the development of MonitAir, right? And
Hold on
It
a
is-
second. Great name, by the way.
Not too bad, huh?
Who came up with the name?
Me and Rick together. Just
That's
kind of like
amazing.
monitor, air, respiratory. Yeah.
Okay.
it is
Yeah.
a great name.
I'm
Yeah.
big on stuff like that.
Yeah,
That's
it,
cool.
it's a really, really great name.
Yep.
And it is an evidence-based product. So what I mean by that is if you look at the research done by Amy Sawyer at UPenn, essentially the model that they've built has tremendous research to back that it is a very, very successful model. Now, did she do it through the MonitAir or a model that MonitAir exists? No, because it wasn't available. Hers was very human driven,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Where she had humans in a research center monitoring the utilization of CPAP and had a similar scaled model in her research study where ICU not using for X amount of time, we give you a text message.
Correct.
ICU not using it for X amount of time longer, we now give you a call.
Well, Ed-
ICU longer, we are now going to
Yeah.
try and change your
This
direction. And it
multimodal.
Well,
type
Ed, can
of-
I
yeah.
ask you a question? Because I believe that you're familiar with where I used to work with Philips. It sounds a lot like our PAMS program, but more specific to a patient need, where our PAMS program was our compliance that you're familiar with?
Sure.
that? Okay.
Sure.
So I'm curious.
But what about for our audience? Because it's described
I apologize.
exactly
Same,
what the PAMs.
exactly what, not exactly. I apologize.
No,
Our
please.
PAMs, so a lot of patients on CPAPs are non-compliant. Non-compliant means that they do not wear it. What Ann was just talking about is if you don't wear it a certain amount of days a week, a certain amount of time, insurances will take it from you. They say you're non-compliant. Our PAMs program, and I can't remember the acronym.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Gosh, Phillips.
We're gonna have to Google it.
Yeah, but basically what they would do
monitoring,
is physicians would pay a monthly fee for each patient for basically a call center to make sure that they were staying on their CPAP, but it didn't have the touch that what you're talking about.
Well,
And
also,
so- go ahead.
it's now introducing a whole new person that they don't know.
Yes.
So I'm going to lie to you. Oh, yeah, I'm using it. It must not be tracking. It must, or I'm just not going to answer your call. So I think one of the beauties is that you are maintaining this
Yep.
medical home for the person who is taking care of you. And in addition to that, you're utilizing the data to mitigate the risk for the individual, right? And so I always look at the cardiovascular space, which you referenced multiple times. And so you look at something, 2020, yeah, it was a terrible year, but November 2020, American College of Cardiology came out with a statement, and they said, we're going to state that it is not sufficient for you just to do some screeners to see if someone has obstructive sleep apnea who has atrial fibrillation. You must do a sleep study. And why? Because when they did the screeners, they found a 68% of people who tested positive on the screener. When they did the sleep studies, it was flipped those number around, 86.
Yep.
Right?
Correct.
And
so 65, 82. Right?
Yeah. And so thank you for correcting me on those specific
yeah,
statistics. But I mean, that is
Huge.
huge. And when you're talking about using CPAP and monitoring that adherence, that's the same in an atrial fibrillation patient of saying, is your medications working for you, right? Are you utilizing them? Is your ablation to stop are you still not back into an atrial? This is that same level of necessity that exists when you're talking about why a program like MonitAir is important. Because in addition to say, are you adherent versus non-adherent, you can further stratify of, this is how much more worried I am. Because you have all these other complexities that if you're not doing your full 8 hours of whatever you're sleeping, and you're getting by with the 4, which is like the bare minimum, we're still seeing that you're a higher risk. We want to change your trajectories. And so I honestly, I think that there is such a tremendous opportunity using a device like this or a remote patient monitoring device like this that is going to change the trajectory of predictive analytics, right? But also, we're now in a setting where healthcare is all about value-based outcomes, right? It's not fee-for-service. It's not how many times did I touch you. It's about when I touch you, was it the right touch? Right, and I don't want to hear any comments on that.
Inappropriate, yeah. So the idea, I think, as you bring up, Ann, is this sort of longitudinal, high touch process, right? That won't necessarily be reimbursed for every touch point, but as a package will be sort of reimbursed. And I think what we need to show, right, not just MonitAir, but us as sleep providers, is what is the value of that, right? So what's the cost analysis, right? So we know the indirect cost and direct cost of obstructive sleep apnea untreated is $150 billion, right? A year, right?
With a B.
And so, okay, great. So if I treat somebody's, what's the number needed to treat, right? If I treat somebody's sleep apnea, what does that do to their 30-day readmission if they have cardiac, right? What does that do to their mood disorder, their mental health? What does that do to their driving capability? All this sort of stuff. And we need to start, as physicians in sleep, we need to start showing that data, right? So we need to gather that data, right? And I think one of my passions is, the remote patient monitoring is great, right? That's just the first step. Really is, can I learn from that data and predict who's going to fail their airway therapy before they fail the therapy? So is it the fact that you're single, that you're a man, that you're obese, that you're asymptomatic, that whatever it is?
Ed is describing.
Can I know that before you know that? So when I enroll that patient in the platform, I can already say, ding, 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 10 bells on this guy.
Right.
Got to put 2 staff members. We got to get this guy going, right?
Sure.
And if he fails, here's a plan, right? So for the ecosystem, it's, okay, maybe this isn't a hypoglossal nerve stimulator patient. Maybe this is an oral appliance, right? Finding that patient and already having documented the failure, what we tried to do, not at 2 months or 3 months. It's, hey, week 1, week 2, week 3. By the time 6 weeks have come around, we've already done 2, 3 interventions, right? So let's get them to the appropriate airway therapy, alternative airway therapy. One, but so learning who's going to fail before they fail, that's huge, right? That's the real value in this, right? And 2 is, off the sleep data that we're seeing, and hopefully we're seeing them in a high frequency basis, right? So if I saw that last week your residual AHI flow was a 2, and which is good, right? It means you're treated, right? Less than 5 is normal, right? At least that's what we have in adults, right? In adults, that's correct. Well, when today you're 10,
What changed?
What changed? Oh, wait a second, this guy's got AFib. Oh, wait a second, he just got out of the hospital 3 weeks ago. So if you can piece that all together and alert that, hey, this guy may be impending AFib with rapid ventricular responses, meaning a high rate, or hey, his heart failure is not doing well, his volume looks decompensated. Can we find that from the sleep data and alert the provider to do something about it, right?
Yeah.
And so hopefully that translates to better patient outcomes, less readmissions, less rehospitalizations, all this, and that's really where we need to drive, right?
Ed,
and
your
me
passion
seeing you today,
his passion.
I was
is
just
so
gonna say
evident.
it's so palpable. But one of the things I also want you to comment on is
Yep.
that you've described why MonitAir from a physician perspective,
Sure.
right? But you also have clearly described your reason, right?
Yeah.
Your reason,
Yeah.
the thing that wakes you up every day,
Sure.
is not to please other physicians.
Yeah.
That is the last thing.
Yeah.
Your passion is, I want to engage patients. And so how do you also see this utilization? Like you have someone who's watching this and they're going, should I ask my doctor?
Yeah,
to
what's
use
MonitAir? Yeah.
And am I getting a more advantage? Like what is the call
And is
to
Matthew
action?
Allard really single?
Well, that's always the question. But I would say that what's the call to action for patients to be able to bring this to their physicians to say, hey, I know that my uncle sees you and I see you and my brother sees you. We have obstructive sleep apnea. Is this something you use in your practice? Like, what are other ways you're supporting me to make sure I'm my best me?
Sure.
Like, how would a patient be able to maybe advocate for this, or where would you see that the value proposition is for the patient
Or
and
other
all this?
physicians watching this going, I got to do this.
Yeah.
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 So how, well, yeah.
Absolutely. I think the idea lies in the fact that, when patients are struggling for therapy, right? We're not kind of touting this product for the patient on third or fourth CPAP and they use 8 hours a night and you download the data and they used every night of the year and they're perfectly, right? This idea is who's treatment naive, they're at risk for failure, right?
So
and who's
brand new to the
brand
treatment.
new. I prescribe you a CPAP. You've never seen a CPAP before. It's daunting. You're
Yep.
qualms about it. Hey, this is a way for me to see you and get you to be adherent, because again, the fun starts when you use your CPAP.
Yep.
All this other stuff that we did wasn't, ends to the means, or means to the ends. But those that also want CPAP to work,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
How can I help salvage you? And me writing a prescription or changing a pressure today and waiting 3 months to see you again
Doesn't
because
work.
I'm limited with my resources and time in the office or whatnot.
Exactly.
And you can't be showing up to my office every day because you got, or every week because you got a life to live, right? How do I get you there, right? And how to support
So
you
you're
along the way.
basically saying, how do we empower the patient to
Correct.
actually have more access and to be able to be more autonomous in what great looks like, right?
Correct.
And so you've heard me say this a million times. I even stated this today when I was at the Hypersomnia Foundation. Our healthcare system is broken because even though we talk about value-based outcome, we still all practice in a very fee-for-service model, which results in episodic care.
Correct.
An episode today, an episode in 3 months, an episode 6 months. I heard
Right.
you say it a million times.
Right.
The reality is the transformation we need to have is a continuous care model.
Correct.
Something like MonitAir is providing that resource that a patient can value and have treatment outcomes different, and a physician becomes more efficient in what they're doing on a day-to-day and more aware of where they need to invest their time.
Correct. And when I see you in the office in 6 months, well, I got 6 months worth of MonitAir reports, so I can kind of see what
Trends.
happened with
Yep.
you, right? What conversations did you have with my staff? What was documented? My staff did this. My staff, not like you're showing up to the office and I don't really know if you did change the pressure, didn't really change the pressure.
But the fact that you care, and it's going to sound crazy,
Yeah.
but I know that there's people out there listening to this. The fact that you care so much gives me freaking hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, guys, I'm a sales guy, and I'm in the sleep industry. Not everybody's like you, Ed. Damn sure not everybody's like you. And I'm serious.
That's just because they don't wear my shoes.
Well, nobody can wear this. But people, it's like they just check boxes.
Yeah.
And you're right. They just do what the
Yeah.
bare minimum. What MonitAir does in my opinion, it holds you accountable and your patients accountable, but it says, I care about my patients.
Sure. Yes.
I don't want them to show up in a month from now and go,
Yes.
Bob, why haven't you been wearing? Now they could come in and go, Bob, you need to wear this.
What happened last night?
This. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And I just think it's, I use the word accountability a lot, but man, I love that fact that.
And going to Ann's point about the healthcare system is broken, a lot of the problem also lies in that accountability, right? I have to be accountable for my patient, but also patients need to be accountable for patients, right?
And the health insurance needs to be accountable to not taking away machines that we're trying to battle to keep.
and not only take the machine away, re-diagnose you with a condition that didn't go away, and now you have to pay another copay or deductible or core insurance for another sleep
Ed
study.
and I talked before. I'm
it's
so
crazy.
frustrated. One of my passions was, why does it take so long to get treated? Whether our veterans, whether and we were on the same page. It was like, okay, so what can we control?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And control's a good word. I don't know why we got so bad. We're like, oh, control's a bad thing. No.
Yeah.
What can control? So how do we get our patients treated best and faster and easier access?
Yes.
The same way for the physician. So I know that there is that frustration, and it sounds like MonitAir plays like this huge piece of what I've been trying. It's so funny. We talked right before this. I thought I had figured it. I said, and I told you about the patient pathway. I got tired of the patient pathway, so we needed stickiness. MonitAir, to me, Ed, sounds like that's what that is.
Yeah.
I mean, that patient leaves your office, gets on a CPAP, and you're seeing the whole continuum, the patient pathway.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and if you tried and that's not for you, right? Because we're not going to treat everybody with the same blood pressure medication or same diabetes
Yes,
medication. It's just
100%.
not going to be that way.
Yeah.
Well, what else can we do for you, right?
Alternatives.
Not oh, you didn't come back to see me. Oh, I don't know what happened.
Right.
Show up 2 years later when the cardiologist told you now you have AFib. I told you got to use your CPAP. Go see the sleep guy again. All that sort of stuff, right? How do we offer that to the patient? So we need to be accountable for patients. Patients need to be accountable for patients. Health systems.
Ed, how do we find how can we help? How can we find MonitAir? What is the next step, Ann? Teach me.
Well, so first of all, I think for the audience, where would they go to even learn more about this? Is it monitair.com?
Yep.
Like what is the website?
So our website is monitairhealth.com.
Okay. How do you spell MonitAir?
MonitAir health.com.
Wonderful.
Love it. Love it. And so we will definitely have this as you're watching this on YouTube.
Thank you.
We'll have it at the bottom there for easier access. So we'll have the link.
Sure.
Definitely.
And so they click on that. Go ahead.
More importantly, if you have people in Miami who want to see you, how do they find you?
Yep. So our office is sleep medicine specialist in South Florida, Dr. Ed Mezerhane. Call the office. Our website is South Florida Sleeps with an S at the end.com.
Nice.
There you go.
And we'd be happy to see you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Ed, I cannot. It's so funny. And maybe it's because I'm either fatter or skinnier or whatever. So we were talking, and he looks at me, and he goes, "We talked last year." I said, "Yeah, we did." I don't like embarrassing her. I guess. Oh yeah, we did talk, and with some mutual friends.
Yep.
But then seeing you last night, I didn't put two and two together until we just were sitting here. So
that's so
and it
fun.
couldn't have nothing
Lighting
to
was
do
bad
with
yesterday.
anything that I drank last night.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
No, it was the lighting
Because that was
yesterday.
just the water that
It
you were
was.
having.
It was.
Yeah.
But Ed, I can't say thank you enough. I think.
Thank you for having me.
For Ann and I doing this podcast with Handsome Dan now and traveling to Indianapolis and your passion is infectious, dude.
Man.
Like I'm fired up.
Yeah.
And I'm just honored that you were sleeping around with Dr. Ann and Matthew today.
Listen, happy to have you. Well, happy for me to be here, but I'd be happy to have you in Miami.
I
We'll sleep around town.
You hear
what
that?
should I do? What
Yep.
should I do? We're doing.
We're going to
I know
Miami.
you mentioned you kind of get in and get out and spend some time next time, man.
I will.
It's
And
contagious.
I will hold you to that. And thank you again for your time.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Matt.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate you.